On January 2020, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella publicly reflects on a decision that would haunt the company's legacy in tech, abandoning Windows Phone. He calls it one of the biggest regrets he had made. For years, Microsoft had fought to carve out a space in the smartphone market, and honestly, Windows Phone wasn't a bad product, but despite its potential, the platform couldn't survive. How did a company that once controlled nearly half the mobile phone market share fall so hard in the smartphone era? What went wrong with Windows Phone? Why even today does it still spark nostalgia and admiration from fans around the world?
And we are calling it iPhone.
It all began in the year 2007. Steve Jobs walked onto the stage, and what he introduced on that stage would change the world. Apple's device combined a phone, an iPod, and a groundbreaking internet device into one sleek package. But what truly set it apart was the software. It was a touch-based interface that can be used by your finger. It might seem hard to believe now, but in 2007, this was something straight out from science fiction. Meanwhile, Microsoft had its own mobile operating system, Windows Mobile. Designed for professional users, it powered early smartphones from HTC, Samsung, and others. But Windows Mobile was clunky and outdated compared to Apple's offering. Its interface was designed for styluses, not fingers, and its app ecosystem was almost non-existent. Microsoft execs weren't too worried about the iPhone at the time because they predicted the iPhone would appeal to younger demographic and thought their business consumers would stay loyal to Windows Mobile. To say Microsoft was in denial was an understatement.
What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not. We have our strategy.
Microsoft underestimated the iPhone's impact. While Apple pushed boundaries and changed the whole mobile landscape, Windows Mobile felt stuck in the past, a relic of the pre-touchscreen era. As the iPhone grew in popularity, it became clear Microsoft needed to act and fast. While Microsoft scrambled to respond to the iPhone, another competitor emerged. Google's Android. Launched in 2008, Android quickly positioned itself as the open, customizable alternative to iOS. Major manufacturers like Samsung, HTC, and Motorola embraced it. Windows Mobile couldn't keep up. Its clunky design and lack of apps made it less appealing to consumers. And as Android became the go-to platform for manufacturers, Microsoft Mobile OS was left behind. To make matters worse, the App Store and Google Play were thriving, offering thousands of apps. Windows Mobile, on the other hand, had almost nothing to offer. Consumers flocked to platforms with better ecosystem, leaving Windows Mobile with a shrinking share of the market. In 2010, Microsoft unveiled Windows Phone, a complete reboot of its mobile strategy. Windows Phone was built for the touchscreen era. It introduced a Metro UI, a bold and clean interface centered around lifestyles that displayed real-time information. Windows Phone was praised for its fresh approach and unique features. It introduced Cortana, one of the earliest digital assistants, along with a unified inbox, deep social media integration, and a dedicated kids corner for child-friendly usage. The OS versions Windows Phone 7, 8, and 8.1 brought incremental improvements. Version 8 introduced support for dual-core processors, high-resolution displays, and expandable storage, catching up to its competitor in hardware support. Version 8.1 added features like Notification Center and support for universal apps across Windows devices. Despite its innovation, Windows Phone faced an uphill battle. By 2010, iOS and Android had already cemented their dominance. Critics praised Windows Phone 7's innovation. Its bold design language stood out in a crowded market of generic app grids. Many even called it the best designed mobile OS of its time. But there was one glaring problem: apps. By the time Windows Phone launched, Apple's App Store and Google Play had already established themselves as a robust ecosystem with thousands of apps. Developers flocked to these platforms, and Microsoft struggled to attract their attention. The lack of key apps like Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube became a deal breaker for many users. Even when the apps were available, they were often poor quality versions or delayed releases compared to iOS and Android. The app gap became a defining issue for Windows Phone. Consumers wanted the apps their friends were using. Without them, the platform felt incomplete. Microsoft's partnership with Nokia was pivotal. The Lumia series became synonymous with Windows Phone, offering vibrant polycarbonate designs, cutting-edge cameras, and robust hardware. The Lumia 1020 set a new benchmark with its 41-megapixel pure-view camera, a feature that remains unmatched even years later. Devices like the Lumia 920 introduced wireless charging and optical image stabilization, innovations that were ahead of their time. In 2012, Microsoft launched Windows Phone 8, a major update that addressed many of the technical limitations of its predecessor. The OS also featured Kids Corner, a unique mode designed for families, and a revamped lock screen that allowed apps to display real-time notifications. In 2014, Windows Phone 8.1 brought even more features, including the introduction of Cortana, Microsoft Virtual Assistant. Cortana wasn't just a voice assistant. It could set reminders, track flights, and even perform context-based searches. It was a serious competitor to Siri and Google Now. Windows Phone 8.1 also added a notification center, an essential feature that had been missing, and universal apps, which allowed developers to build applications that work across phone, tablets, and PCs. This was Microsoft's attempt to unify its ecosystem and attract developers. By 2014, iOS and Android had firmly established themselves as the dominant platforms. Microsoft's late entry into the smartphone era meant it was constantly playing catch-up. The App Store and Google Play continued to grow exponentially, while Windows Phone apps ecosystem lagged far behind. Developers were hesitant to invest in Windows Phone due to its low market share, creating a vicious cycle. By 2014, the cracks in Microsoft's mobile strategy were becoming clear. Windows Phone market share was dwindling, dropping below 3%. The partnership with Nokia wasn't delivering the results Microsoft had hoped for. In fact, the $7.2 billion acquisition of Nokia's phone division in 2014 turned into a financial disaster. Meanwhile, Android and iOS continued to dominate. Android offered flexibility and affordability, while iOS strengths were on superior app quality and better ecosystem integration. Windows Phone, despite its potential, was stuck in the middle, lacking the apps of iOS and the openness of Android. In 2017, Microsoft officially ended support for Windows Phone. The company shifted its focus on apps and services for iOS and Android, essentially conceding defeat in the smartphone race. Windows Phone failed not because the ideas behind it were flawed, but because of poor timing, flawed execution, and an inability to adapt to a rapidly changing market. Microsoft underestimated the competition and overestimated its ability to ensure their enterprise customers' loyalty to the brand.
Most profitable companies now in our business are Apple, Samsung, Microsoft.
Right.
For years it was Microsoft and some other guys.
Yeah.
So do I wish we had done that sooner? Of course I do.
Then why didn't you?
When the name of your company is Microsoft and your formula works, our formula was working. To new form factors, like the phone was new to us, I should have moved us faster.
Another critical misstep was Microsoft's favoritism towards Nokia. By forming an exclusive partnership, Microsoft alienated other phone manufacturers who could have helped grow the Windows Phone ecosystem. This lack of diversity in hardware partners made it nearly impossible for the platform to scale effectively. Meanwhile, Android's strategy for working with multiple manufacturers allowed it to dominate the mid and lower tier markets, areas where Microsoft never managed to gain a foothold. Compounding the issue, Microsoft's services and software at the time fell short of what Google was offering. While Google provided seamless integration with its ecosystem, offering services like Gmail, Google Maps, and the Play Store, Microsoft offerings felt clunky and underwhelming in comparison. Even as the company improved its software in later years, the damage has already been done. Ultimately, Windows Phone legacy is a sobering reminder that even the most innovative ideas and the backing of a tech giant aren't enough to succeed without careful strategy, adaptability, and respect for the competition.